So Magic is Fortnite now, or at least that's what people are saying after the announcement that both Universes Beyond will be standard legal moving into next year, and that half of next year's sets are also Universes Beyond. Those are two separate things. So let's unpack that. But quick little bit of background, because people don't know me. I'm some fucking random dude, right? I've been playing Magic since 2018. I started playing just before Ixalan came out. Still one of my favorite sets of all time. Nostalgia, yada, yada, yada. Mostly play Standard. These days on Arena. And a good bit of Commander. I got my Commander deck sitting over there, whatever. And so far, my experience with the Universes Beyond has actually been pretty good. My initial reaction back when the Secret Lair Walking Dead one came out was, I don't like that. I stand by that. Same for like Stranger Things and that, but for the bigger Universes Beyond releases, we're talking Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, and those are the big two I've really enjoyed. Doctor Who I haven't actually had a chance to engage with, but regardless, I've enjoyed them. And that being said, I'm not looking forward to Marvel being a part of not just Magic the Gathering as a whole, but particularly Standard. So with that bit of context as to my general opinion on Universes Beyond, the announcement, as I mentioned at the start, it's kind of two parts. There is part one of Universes Beyond is now in Standard, moving forward next year. And part two is that half of next year's sets, 3 of the 6, are Universes Beyond. We'll have Final Fantasy, Spider-Man, and then an unannounced Universes Beyond set. Which, that's a lot. But let's go back to the first part of the announcement. Universes Beyond is going to be part of Standard. Knee-jerk reaction? Fuck no. Absolutely not. But upon further thought, I had a similar reaction to some of the, I guess, more out there genre explorations that Magic has been diving into the last few years. I didn't particularly like the concept of Streets of New Capenna when I first heard about it, but mechanically, there's a lot of stuff I enjoy in that set. I am a bit on the fence about Duskmourn. I kind of like the 80s styling, and thankfully most of the horror-focused stuff fits into Magic pretty well. So I feel like, aside from a few outliers, that dive into a different genre, or I guess a different kind of horror, because Magic's tackled horror a lot. But 80s, action-adventure sort of horror stuff, I think actually worked pretty well. Thunder Junction, not a fan of aesthetically, but mechanically there's a lot of stuff I like in that set. And that's something that I want to focus on, is that despite a lot of the recent Magic explorations of different genres, even when they're genres I have not particularly cared for, mechanically, I've enjoyed playing pretty much all of them. There's some exceptions. Murderer Call of Manor, flop of set, kind of shit. Wilds of Eldraine, I didn't play original Eldraine. I was not really playing Magic at the time, so for me, Eldraine was new. Liked the flavor, mechanically was not a fan of the set, but for the most part, I think that most of the sets have been mechanically engaging, even if stylistically or aesthetically, they're not my cup of tea. And so, with a lot of the Universes Beyond stuff, even though I'm not particularly into Warhammer, I've enjoyed the games that I've played both with and against the Warhammer pre-con decks. And Lord of the Rings was one of the best draft experiences that I've had, both on Arena and in paper. So I don't think the branding, the IP part of it is the issue, because we can expect, for the most part, mechanically these sets are going to be fun. Believe it or not, Rosewater and the rest of the team over at Wizards kind of have that down for the most part. Sometimes they experiment and it doesn't work out, but believe it or not, that's part of experimenting. So on to the second part of the announcement, which is that there's going to be 6 sets in standard now instead of or 6 standard sets in a year instead of what is currently 5, I believe. That I'm like a little iffy on, especially because we're going to have Foundations, which is going to be a big library of cards for standard that's going to be, I think, until 2029 legal. And then the card pool is going to be even bigger. We've got now a longer standard rotation. We have Foundations, kind of like a core set, but for a longer period. And then more sets going into standard each year than before. Assuming they're all about the same size, 300-ish cards, that's going to make for the biggest standard format we've ever had. I don't think that's great. I think standard's in a relatively good place. I play pretty casually, but I think it's in an all right place at the moment. Not amazing, but like pretty good. I'm not a fan of having half of what's going into standard, at least for next year. Rosewater did say that this current release schedule is not set in stone. So 2026 might have 1 Universes Beyond set go into standard. We don't know. I doubt that'll be the case, given that Universes Beyond stuff has consistently been a pretty blockbuster event in terms of sales. I think Lord of the Rings is the best-selling Magic set of all time, for good reason, because it's a fucking brilliant set. But it does, unfortunately, through the corporate lens, set a precedent I don't like with those 2 things. I think separately, these things are okay. Having more Universes Beyond releases, fine. Or having Universes Beyond in standard, also fine. Having both of those together, in my opinion, is the issue. As much as I think, for the most part, the aesthetics of recent Magic sets have been all right. Some hits, some misses, but like, that's to be expected. I don't like the idea of Spider-Man being just a regular part of standard. And I want to emphasize the word idea, because even the sets that I aesthetically have had no fucks to give, most of them I enjoy mechanically. I find something in every set to enjoy. And so realistically, as much as my knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, I don't want to fucking play against Spider-Man and Captain America and Sephiroth in my fucking standard Magic games, I realize that most of the time, the aesthetics of Magic kind of blend into the background when I'm playing. That's not to say that's always the case. A big thing that I actually really focus on when I'm building my commander decks is making it very thematic. One of my favorite decks is my Meld Urza one, which everything in there is intentionally picked to be thematically appropriate to Urza and his story through Brothers War, but also be a good, powerful deck. And that means that there are some cards that I would have put in there, but thematically they don't line up with the story. And so I didn't want to, there would be very strong additions to that deck, but I didn't want to put that in there. Same with like one of my pirate decks, where it's a bit of a steal your shit sort of thing, as well as like some group huggy sort of stuff, where it's got like Cursed Totem and Wedding Ring and just some silly stuff that is fun to pass around the board, like a bunch of pirates that have gone to some secret cove and stolen some cursed treasure, and now it's going around and becoming everyone's problem. I like building stories into my commander decks, and I don't like the idea of Spider-Man having some unique mechanics in that set that I'm really interested in, but I don't want to build a Spider-Man deck. This is coming from someone that's a very big Spider-Man fan. I don't want Spider-Man in Magic. I don't want Iron Man in Magic. I am kind of indifferent to Final Fantasy stuff in Magic because I feel like it's adjacent enough. Like we've already had the recent Kamigawa set, which is, you know, very techno-futurist, and I think Final Fantasy kind of blends in with that pretty well. So on that front, like I feel like it's not that big a deal, but Spider-Man, Brooklyn, New York. Are we gonna have lands? I didn't even think about this before I started shooting. We're gonna have lands that are just like different parts of New York. The fucking the Daily Bugle building, stuff like that. I don't like the idea of that. I'm excited for Foundations. I'm very excited for Innistrad Remastered because Innistrad is probably my favorite setting, second to Ixalan, but it's going to be sad to see less exploration of those settings. And that's the thing, I enjoy Magic's story a lot. I enjoy the different settings a massive amount, actually. Not just Ixalan and Innistrad, which are my two favorite areas, but like I enjoy Ravnica when it's not the recent Murder at Carl Manor. I really like Dominaria. I am very much a big fan of Dominaria United and Brothers War as well, and the sort of pseudo time travel stuff in that. I really enjoy Magic storytelling, and I enjoy when I build my commander decks, or not so much when I'm playing in standard, but for my commander decks, I enjoy building decks that feel like a part of that story. I'm not going to say that Spider-Man or Final Fantasy is going to take away from that, but I think it is sad to see Magic's own IP being put, not necessarily to, no, it is being put to the side. I think that's a fair thing to say. That it is not the focus of the game anymore. Hopefully, I want to interpret what Rosewater said about the current release cadence for 2025 not being a set in stone thing for future years. I want to interpret that optimistically and be like, yeah, okay, so it's just like a big push this year, maybe like bringing a big influx of players, and then the balance comes out, and maybe it's 1 or 2 Universes Beyond sets a year. I don't want to be like, go back to Commander, because I think too much Commander product in general. I'm very sick of Commander. I don't play it anymore. Those are my thoughts. I'm not particularly happy about the SpongeBob secret layer either, but also it's a secret layer, and secret layers you can very much just not engage with. I still get annoyed by the mechanically unique stuff that has been in a secret layer drop that hasn't had an in-universe version yet, but for the most part, hasn't really been a problem. So, annoying, not the end of the world, but that's not going to happen with an entire set of Spider-Man stuff. They're not going to, do a whole Magic rebrand of all that in 2, 3, 5 years. I don't see that happening. You're going to be forced to engage with it, whether you like it or not. If you play Standard, definitely going to be forced to. So I guess it goes back to what I was saying earlier. We'll see is Spider-Man in Standard going to bother me? I don't know. In my heart, yes. Not a fan of it. In my head, when I'm actually playing the game, probably not. But I guess we'll see. Anyway, peace. I want to start uploading just random shit on this channel again, because I was doing it for a while and then I've been really busy. I just haven't had something that I've had a really intense opinion on that I've wanted to talk about. So, here we are.